Hello, everyone. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. And today is Monday, the 11th of April, 2022. Click here to subscribe on the subscribe button in the lower right, or also in the far upper right, the notification bell to be notified when new episodes get released. Today, my topic is comparing Abraham Lincoln to Douglas Southall Freeman in terms of race. But before I do that, I want to ask you to please join us in our fight to defeat the cultural genocide that the political left is trying to sweep across the South. We do not ask you for donations, but suggest instead that you buy our books to learn the facts that you can rarely learn elsewhere. Join us in that fight against cultural genocide. Buy our books, read them. They'll give you the facts you need to combat this. And give our books 5-star ratings at Amazon if you like them. My latest book is The Dreadful Frauds, Critical Race Theory and Identity Politics. There's going to be no chance whatsoever of retaining Confederate statues or even any kind of respect for Southern heritage if critical race theory becomes the dominant interpretation of race relations historically and presently in the United States. So this book would be, if you'd like an autographed copy, contact me, Phil, PHIL_Lee, Leigh at me.com. And that would be $20 for covering, and that will cover the postage as well as the book and the autograph. If you simply want the book, it's $16 at Amazon in paperback and $6 in Kindle. Okay. Based upon a background report of Douglas Southall Freeman by Dr. Lauranett L. Lee of the University of Richmond, which prompted the University of Richmond to remove his name from Mitchell-Freeman Hall, owing to his alleged racism. All the good that he had done for the school's academic reputation, as a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner and graduate of the school, as a member of the Board of Trustees, and as a rector of the Board of Trustees, counted for nothing. Even though the midpoint of his career his adult career was 1930, the university administrators are holding him to today's racial standards without any allowance for being part of a different era, when his racial attitudes were judged moderate and often sympathetic to blacks. Despite their similarity to those of Abraham Lincoln, Richmond University demonizes Freeman for his racial beliefs, while its leading historian, I'm sure almost all of its history professors, along with Edward Ayers, who is their leading historian and former president, they all glorify Lincoln. Let's put it that way. So here we have Freeman is thrown into the outer darkness, and where there'll be gnashing of teeth. And Lincoln has got the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. No complaints about that. But what I propose to do here is to show you the similarities between the two. But consider this first. In contrast, the university administrators extend Freeman's critics, including Dr. Lee, special allowances concerning time, place, and membership of a minority race. They fault Freeman for opposing interracial marriage, even though 75% of whites and 73% of blacks opposed it in 1968, 15 years after Freeman's death. Additionally, when Freeman referred to blacks in his writings, he normally did so with a then respectful term of Negro, as opposed to colored or the unmentionable N-word. That's not to say he never used colored, he did, but normally he used Negro. Now, in contrast, Dr. Lee, who is among his chief critics today, constantly capitalizes the letter B in black when referring to African Americans in her 100-page criticism of Freeman, while always using a lowercase w when referencing white people in that same 100-page document, which was originally published about a year and 2 months ago. Now, although I have contacted Professors Lee and Ayers, as well as President Crutcher of Richmond University. Nobody at the university has replied to me to explain why a capital B for black is okay and a capital and a lowercase w is used with white. Nothing. Consequently, without any information, the most logical assumption is that Dr. Lee's use of the uppercase B for black people and lowercase w for white people is an expression of endemic black superiority, evidently endorsed by the university. That, in short, is racism. The University of Richmond is promoting racism by using a capital B when referring to black people and a lowercase w when referring to white people. If you want to laugh at it, go ahead, but that's it's as good an explanation as saying that the Confederate monuments were put up in order to put black people in their place, which could be nothing could be further from the truth. Nonetheless, let us now consider the comparative racial attitudes of Lincoln and Douglas Southall Freeman. Both believed in racial segregation, although Freeman argued that the separate black public facilities should be equal to those of whites. I don't recall Lincoln making such a comment. In the second year of the Civil War, President Lincoln met with 5 black leaders at the White House. Quote, "You and we are different races. We have between us a broader difference than exists between almost any other 2 races. Whether it is right or wrong, I need not discuss, but this physical difference is a great disadvantage to us both. If this is admitted, it affords a reason at least why we should consider being separated," close quote. The president then recommended to the blacks attending the meeting that they leave the United States to colonize other countries, such as Panama, which was then part of Colombia, or Liberia. Quote, "It is better for us both, therefore, to be separated." This is Lincoln speaking. "I know that there are free men among you not much inclined to go out of the country. I suppose one of the principal difficulties in the way of colonization is that the free colored man cannot see that his comfort would be advanced by it. This is, and I speak no unkind sense here, an extremely selfish view of the case." 8 years earlier, and 7 years before the Civil War, Lincoln explained that he did not want slavery in the Western territories because he did not want blacks there, whether they be slave or free. He wanted blacks kept away from the Western territories and quarantined in the South. Quote, "The whole nation is interested that the best use shall be made of these Western territories. We want them for the homes of free white people," close quote. Despite his untimely death, Lincoln successfully retained the Western Territory for free white people. Of all 22 states admitted to the Union from Texas in 1845 to the present day, nearly 100 years later, all but 2 entered and joined the Union when blacks composed 1% or less of their populations. The 2 exceptions are the border states of Oklahoma and West Virginia. The latter admitted as a slave state when Lincoln was still president. Lincoln, of course, is most remembered for his Emancipation Proclamation, which was announced in September 1862 and implemented in January 1863. It prohibited all Americans from owning slaves, except for those who happened to reside in the United States. You couldn't own a slave. If you were American, you couldn't own a slave unless you lived in the United States. Lincoln admitted it was adopted as a war measure to weaken the Confederacy. He was aware that it might even ignite a servile insurrection in the South that would cause the Confederate soldier to abandon his army so that he may return home to protect his family from massacre and slaughter. Lincoln was so discouraged at that time that he would lose the war, that Attorney General Bates recorded the president saying he was, quote, almost ready to hang himself, close quote, only weeks before he announced the proclamation. While Lincoln's militarily motivated Emancipation Proclamation was an enlightened initiative for his time, Freeman was similarly outspoken for racial equality under the law and equality of separate public facilities at a time when that such constituted liberal thinking. Even Professor Lee, his big critic, admits that between 1936 and 1942, Freeman urged his newspaper readers to provide more funding for Black schools. She admits that his editorials, quote, on lynching, judicial equality, and police violence would at times even earn praise from the Black community. Okay, that's what I've got to say for today. And I want to thank you for stopping by. And again, just let me point out to you, the dreadful frauds, critical race theory and identity politics. There's no chance of preserving respect for Southern heritage or Confederate monuments and memorials if critical race theory becomes the predominant interpretation of American history and the predominant explanation of how our society came to be as racially different as it is. I think it's increasingly homogeneous, but be that as it may, that's our show for today. And I want to thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.